Hello, welcome to another episode of the Seamus Evans Show. Can I just say, I am absolutely blown away that over the last 7 days, I've had like 160 streams, downloads, listens, views, whatever you want to call it. I was like, wow, because I've started this thing just as a way of understanding the platform and understanding how to podcast. I spent many years in broadcast radio, many years in broadcast television, but I've never built a podcast online audience ever. I have had a crack at YouTube, failed miserably. But just watching the listeners and the subscribers and the streams just grow more and more and monitor. It's actually really cool. So if you're watching this and you're joining us and you're listening to this, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. At the moment, I wouldn't say scared. I wouldn't say fearful. I don't know what to expect. I don't know how to feel. Because on Sunday, I'm competing in my very first jiu-jitsu competition. Now, this is not a soccer match. This is not a stand-up comedy routine. This is a fight. Like I am fighting on Sunday. Fighting, physical combat. I've been training for over a year. I'm a white belt, 4-stripe white belt. I go to a club called One Purpose BJJ. Now, the owner, the guy who runs the gym, he's like a world champion. And I roll with him. And man, like, let me tell you something. If you're a guy and you lift weights, or you do push-ups, and you've got testosterone flowing through your body, you get this ego, and sometimes you think, I'm pretty tough. I can handle myself. No, you can't. One thing I've learned about doing jiu-jitsu, nobody knows how to handle themselves against someone who's actually trained. It's the hardest thing ever. Anyway, I'm addicted to it and I love it. And the thing with what I've learned so far about jiu-jitsu is it's a lifelong thing. It's not like a trade where you do 4 years as an apprentice and then, well, that's it. I'm now a qualified carpenter. It's not like you do jiu-jitsu, you get to a certain belt and then you're like, well, that's it now. I'm just that good forever. No, you got to do it forever. Always. Like you can acquire a certain amount of skills, but use it or lose it. And that's a very important skill that, or mindset or realization, even though I've been told a million times, that I've really adapted recently is use it or lose it. Now, for basically all of my 20s, the only training that I did was, I call them disco muscles, chest and tris or biceps, because I wanted to go on the dance floor, oosh, 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 and pick up chicks, and or I'd do running or whatever. Boring. Running. Ugh. I trained for a marathon once. Man, that sucked. At like I was 100 kilos, I think at the time, or maybe like 95, whatever. Heavy, 6 foot and 97 kilos running 20 kilometers. Man, that ruins your joints, something fierce. Every step you take, pain jolts through your body. But during my 6 weeks of intense jiu-jitsu training, going to the classes, going to the competition classes, being up against really high-level dudes, and I'm low-level, getting my ass kicked over and over and over and over, and not in the fun way, if you know what I'm saying. Ow! It teaches you stuff. One, the biggest thing that I've learned is even though I'm the main character in my movie, my main character ain't a hero, man. He is not the John Wick that that you imagine yourself to be. Like, everybody in their life thinks they're the hero, the superhero in their story. Wake up call. No, you ain't. You've got to build up those superhero qualities and traits. You're not born a hero. You're not born the good guy. You've got to become that person. And that takes some humbling, man. And the biggest thing I've learned in playing jujitsu or learning it or going to whatever, training in it, you very quickly learn that you are pretty helpless against someone who knows how to manhandle you. Very, like, you're utterly rendered useless against someone who knows jujitsu and you don't. It's over. Now, I had to learn that pretty early on, that my bench pressing skills don't matter and my running 7Ks don't matter. And I've spent the last 12 months getting my butt handed to me on the mats. And I have learned how to endure that. I have learned to find ways to keep turning up. And I've learned how to appreciate that maybe there are areas that I need to improve on. And that's where I think I've gotten the most excited out of my jiu-jitsu training so far, is that reality has presented itself to me and it said, you're not as good as you think, mate. You're not this character in your mind that is better than the whole world. And you actually can't handle yourself in a physical altercation if it ever came to that. That harsh truth was, one, very humbling. And two, well, I'm not someone to kind of get upset over that. I go, all right, well, let's get better. And so I've been doing personal one-on-one sessions with a coach, and I have been turning up every week, every day. I've gotten up to, I think 1 week I did 6 days in a row, but 5 days a week, just been turning up. The other thing I've learned is we like to put excuses in the way of our progression, or we like to put excuses in front of us to reassure us when we're losing that it's not our fault. One of the specific lessons that I have learnt in doing this martial art is sometimes the odds are stacked against you in a fight. They might have your leg. They might have both of your arms. You might have sweat in your eye. But you just keep fighting like that. Then that's just how you fight. So to give you, if you've got no idea what jiu-jitsu is, you start standing up and then you do a takedown and then it's all rolling. There's no punching or kicking. But you start standing up and then you take one of the person takes the other person down, and then it's wrestling basically. And then you've got to choke the other person out or make them tap by holding a joint and basically going to break their arm. And very early on, I used to just allow the takedown to happen. I'd stand up and they would get a specific, and we'd just go to the floor. And then someone said to me, don't go down unless they take you down. Don't ever give up that takedown position. If the whole match is stand up, then the whole match is stand up. Now, great advice, but a match will go for like 6 minutes. That's when we train for 6-minute rounds. And at 2.5 minutes of just standing up, hand fighting, you're very tired and you're gassed, you're exhausted and your mouth is dry and, you start like, oh my gosh, this is a hard match. Then you glance at the clock and you're like, geez, we're only 2.5 minutes in. We've got 3.5 minutes left. That decision there to go, well, looks like we're going to stay standing. That's where I've started learning and adapting to life, because just say at school, at work, in business, at uni, in a relationship, whatever the challenging period of your life is, accepting that that's the challenge you're in and just continuing in that challenge gives you another breath, gives you a checkpoint, gives you a new lease and a motivational spike to just keep fighting when the odds are stacked against you. And what I have noticed is that when you do just keep going, you get a little bit further than what you thought. because your mind constantly gives you a reason to stop. For some reason, it just goes, oh, it's hard, quit. But if you're able to register that that's a thought and not the truth, and that's just how you're going to continue fighting, and you just keep pushing, you actually surprise yourself. Like this happened the other day. I was in a match or in a role. I was training and I just couldn't get them down. We were doing stand-up and I just couldn't get them. And then I got one of their legs, but I couldn't get them off balance. And I put my head under their chin and I just kept driving and they stayed on balance on one foot. And my mind said, you haven't got it, give up. And I thought, no, why don't I just keep pushing? And I ended up pushing them almost to the other side of the mat. I pushed them like 4 or 5 meters and they kept hopping and bang, then they end up falling over. And I remember thinking, I almost gave up then. Like I almost stopped. I almost didn't do that takedown. But it was because I kind of accepted that just this is the situation you're in. You just got to keep putting your effort in and you actually get past it. Over the last week, I've been in a bit of a frustrating period in my life. I've been quite frustrated with where I am. And I think this is a very normal thing I can't speak on women's behalf, but a normal thing on men. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves, especially when you've got to provide for a family or when you have this ambition mind or goals. And especially now in like success culture, there's like so much on social media about success and business and growing your wealth and high performance that it can get you down because you look inside your own life and go, I'm not like that. I'm not there. They're better than me. This is how I live. And it can bring you down. Now, I'm not looking at the grass on someone else's yard, but instead I am doing a stock take on my own yard, metaphorically speaking. And I'm like, I think I should be further along. I feel like I should be more successful than what I am. And it got me a bit down. I'm not going to lie. I was quite down this week on Monday about it all. And I was talking to a very close friend of mine and he said, but that's just how it goes. Success isn't the fast lane. Success in life isn't rapid growth. It's actually slow and steady and boring. And it's just small incremental gains every single day. And I know this. This is what I talk about on stage, right? Incremental gains, getting better every day. But when nothing exciting is happening and there's no real growth that you think you can measure, it's really hard to look back and notice the growth. I guess because you have tunnel vision or the blinders on and you're looking down at your feet. It's like if you're climbing a mountain, you don't think you're going very far because you're looking at your feet and you're like, I'm not getting anywhere, man. And then you turn around and you're like, actually, I've been climbing this mountain for the last 3Ks and I'm actually quite high up. It just hasn't felt like a climb because we look at a lot of other people and their rise to success and it looks exciting and fun. But the hard truth is, in my experience, it's not. It's just doing something the same every day for a long period of time. And then people acknowledge, wow, they've been doing it a long time. They must know what they're talking about. And I just feel like the younger generation, man, that makes me feel old, who are entering the workforce, they change jobs every year, every 2 years, every 6 months. They're constantly changing jobs when looking back, it's like, dude, stay in one job, one industry for 20 years. Then you actually get respect because you know what you're doing. You know, like if you've just slowly climbed the ranks, a very close person in my life has been with a company, and I have to kind of speak in riddles here because I can't really go into detail about who they are or where they worked. But they were a part of a company for like 25 years. A very big international company. And they climbed to the top. Very, very top. And when they left just recently, there wasn't It wasn't a giant pat on the back for 25 years. It was like, all right, mate, yeah, so, okay. Listen, clean out your desk and all right, yeah, listen, all the best. We'll pass the hat around. Pass the hat around and get you a card and a couple of people will sign it. All the best. Okay. But like they've given us quarter of a century to this company, brought in millions upon millions of dollars, and they get like a nothing exit. And if we look at Kyle and Jackie O, actually, the Kyle and Jackie O here in Australia are very controversial. People either hate them or they love them, but they're very, very successful. They're on $100 million contracts over 10 years and each, and they, ridiculous money, ridiculous success, media moguls here in Australia and actually international. Like they constantly have A-list celebrities on. They are known all over the world. They get streamed all over the world, but they're the most successful radio duo here in Australia. And they've been going for like 25 years. And just this week, Jackie O quit. And it was after a little on-air fight that they had. Now, there's so much more to the story, but there is a huge fallout here. They have broken up. The show is over. 25 years. And it's now gone. And it's made me realize that the end is never fun. The end is never a good ending. It's never a good goodbye, but it's the journey. And I know that's so cliche. It's not the end destination, man. It's the journey. But listen, you can read as many self-help books as you want. You can research the secrets to life as much as you want, but unless you experience them with an open mind and understand where you can improve and actually properly observe, step out of your own life and look into how life unfolds. That's only when you can really understand that cliche of it's not the end destination, it's the journey. Kyle and Jackie O have had an amazing journey, and I've been obsessed with them for a long time. Listening almost every single day, right? Loved it. I've had to stop myself because their podcasts go for like 3 hours. I got stuff to do, man. And I listened to them growing up, and that's one of the reasons why I got into radio in the first place. I really liked Kyle and Jackie O. And anyway, I won't go into too much detail about that. But the last 6 weeks of jiu-jitsu training has been really hardcore, and it's been really tough psychologically in specific training days where competition training classes. I was like, I went to some dark places. Like my brain put me in panic states, and my brain started to panic and freak out thinking I was going to die because I was being choked out and being, folded up like a deck chair, and a big, heavy, strong person was on top of me and I couldn't breathe, smothering me. And what happens when you're in that state? Your brain panics and goes, you're going to die. Quick, you're going to die. And you have to train yourself to be calm in that moment. And obviously, because I have this looming competition hanging over me, it's like you've got to get comfortable in that state because that might happen to you in this fight. And training and fighting is very different. I assume. I've never fought. Another really strong lesson that I've learned is you don't step it up until there's pressure. You don't step it up in your life, in your work, in your relationship, in your hobby, unless there's a looming carrot, unless there's something you're working towards. Unless you've got a goal in sight, you just wander aimlessly. And I feel that's where the secret of life is. You've got to give yourself something to get up, a reason to keep fighting, a reason to keep training, a reason to keep getting up. It could be a small goal or a big goal, but sign up to something, commit to something, and having that deadline, so to speak, it lights a fire up under your ass. And I've definitely noticed in the 6 weeks that I've been training for this competition coming up on Sunday, a fire has been lit. I've had tunnel vision. on training, goal-orientated. Everything else has subsided, and everything else that wasn't important has dropped away. Yeah, it's been scary. It's been nerve-wracking. And a part of me, I'm like, I wish I didn't sign up to this. Like, this is actually pretty scary. I've signed up to try and rip someone's head off, and they're going to rip my head off. Imagine what fighters think, man. Like in UFC or boxers, where, like, let's face it, I'm entering an amateur competition. Amateur. We're just a couple of Joe Blows, right, who have been having a crack for a year. Get over yourself. We're nobodies. But imagine people who, with punches and kicks in UFC, like, that's serious, man. And then you got to think, you know what else has made me think about? Imagine in Roman times in the Colosseum with the gladiators, fighting with swords. Like, I'm playing. I'm only mucking around, right? And I'm still nervous. Imagine a Roman soldier with a sword. Just for human entertainment. Gnarly. Coming up, I really want to do 100 episodes in 100 days for 100 subscribers, like a podcasting content creation challenge. But it's going to be very difficult, and so there's a lot of planning that has to go into it. And something that my jiu-jitsu training has taught me, and appropriate to life, is it's not going to be every single day that I record an episode won't be amazing. It won't be Oscar winning. It won't be high volume, high download, or it won't be even engaging. A lot of the time it's probably going to be me just talking smack to a camera in my car, because my podcast studio sometimes isn't available because I have a toddler. So it's going to actually be quite difficult. And the whole point is life is difficult. You just have to keep forging ahead. You just have to keep trying. You just have to keep fighting against the odds. You just have to keep accepting that, yeah, odds are stacked against you. But if you sit around and you just say, well, come up with an excuse, you are going to stay stagnant. And stagnant is where you die. When you don't use it, you lose it. If you come up with an excuse and listen to your brain when it tells you to stop or quit, then you slowly decay. It's taken me a long time to understand that and realize that. And I feel the problem that we as humans do to overcompensate that, we set the goal a little too high. Like maybe, for example, 100 days, 100 episodes for 100 subscribers on podcasting. That could be way too high of a goal. Because we think coming up with the idea will solve the problem. But sometimes the problem can be solved by just turning up every day. That's a really valuable lesson that I have had to learn over the last, I would say, 2 years of my life, is there's two ways you can turn up. You can turn up and just roll the arm over, which means just get through the motions. Or you can turn up with a smile, understand that you're not a superhero, understand that you're not John Wick, and humble yourself and appreciate that there's something that you can improve on. Lower that ego a little bit and learn, because there's reps and there's reps. And when it comes, like, I'm not a bodybuilder, but I've seen a lot of interviews with bodybuilders, and they say you can do 20 reps and it won't count. The whole thing that counts is the last rep. If you're straining and if your muscles can't feel like they can't lift anymore, that's when you grow. And so, yeah, like, you can turn up and just go through the motions mindlessly like a zombie. And that gets you nowhere. Or you can appreciate that there is work that needs to be done in your own life and learn it. Appreciate that you're not as good. Like, another lesson that I've learned in jiu-jitsu, there's learning a skill and a technique, and then there's psychological games you play with someone else, and there's fighting. So I am not very comfortable with pain, okay? I'm assuming not many people are, but I show it. If I'm hurt, I'm like, like an absolute sook. And the amount of times someone has just flipped me and thrown me, and I'm like, oh, and the whole gym looks at me like, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm hurting. You just threw me, man. Like, ow. And I'm gassed. I'm like, like a little child. And the coach and a few people have had to say, hey, you shouldn't show people when you're tired. Even though you're exhausted and you can't catch your breath, you pretend like you're fine. I'm like, oh, okay. Because it shows the other person a weakness. And you can, like, that's what humans do. They pounce on weakness. And if you show pain, they're going to go, oh, he's almost out. You can beat him pretty easily. He's in pain and he's out of breath. So you have to put on this, not a brave face, but you have to register how you're feeling and then not ignore it, but tell yourself you're not going to die. So a lot of the conversations I'm also having with my psychologist is this process called ACT, right? It's a therapy psychology thing. But it's about registering your thoughts and an emotion, and you go, I identify that I feel a certain way, or I identify that I have a thought. And then it like labels a thought. And then you're like, oh, I've got that thought. Okay, well, that thought isn't me, and that thought doesn't determine who I am, nor does that emotion. That emotion doesn't make me me. Then you say, okay, I appreciate that I have that. It doesn't make me me. Thank you, brain. And apparently, if you do that, it puts a few like barriers between you and that thought, because sometimes thoughts, intrusive thoughts and feelings can be so overwhelming that we panic and we worry that it means more than it probably does. And we can connect a thought and make it our identity, which isn't the case. So that's a little technique that you kind of put distance between you and a thought. And thoughts are normal. They're not harmful unless you make them harmful. And they're not real. A thought isn't real. That's the bit. And there's apparently in Chinese languages, in English, we have one word for our mind, and that's just mind. But in Chinese languages, there's two words for your mind. There's thinking mind and observing mind. So thinking mind is thoughts. And then observing mind is observing that you have those thoughts. And the deep philosophical conversation I got into with my therapist was, you are not the thinking mind, but you are also not the observing mind. It is just your mind. Deep, man. But it was really good because I was like, wait a second, don't your thoughts come from you? Yes, but these thoughts come from experiences that you've been through. They don't necessarily determine your personality or your values or who you are. They're just things you've experienced. But they don't make you you. They're not you. You are your values. And we went through some of my values, and we went through some values that, people are. And your thoughts are just experiences. Your thoughts are just memory banks of your life and what you've gone through, but they're not you. So if you have a bad thought, it's so easy to think, oh, I'm a horrible person for thinking that. No, you're not a horrible person for having a thought. The thought isn't a real thing. You're horrible if you act on it, but there's a big gap between thinking and acting. And psychologically, verbally using your words, you can put a gap, a gate, a barrier between you and those thoughts. And this is something I've only learned this week. It's actually been a really fascinating journey. Because because having Tourette's, and if this is the first time you've come across me, I've got Tourette's syndrome, right? And I talk about it on stage. I talk about it in schools. I share a lot about it, right? Have done for many years. I talk about it for a living. Intrusive thoughts are a part of Tourette's. Even Robbie Williams came out recently and said that he has Tourette's and his intrusive thoughts are his Tourette's. It's actually pretty wild that you can have intrusive thoughts more so than someone who doesn't have Tourette's. So I think intrusive thoughts everybody has, but if you have Tourette's, you got it more. Also, a song can get stuck in your head way more than someone without Tourette's, because everybody's brain fires off signals and neurons, but people with Tourette's have a gate to stop unwanted signals and thoughts and whatever. People with Tourette's don't have a gate, so it fires through. That's a very simple way of explaining it. But when you have an intrusive thought or a thought that triggers an emotion, they don't make you who you are, and that doesn't mean that is your personality. They are just thoughts from previous life experiences. Well, I feel like I've rambled on a little bit, but let me just go back to my point about this Sunday, my jiu-jitsu tournament. Yeah, there is a little bit of nerve. There's a little bit of fear, the unknown, but there's actually excitement because I've trained, because I have put so much effort into my training, and I've been put into some really scary positions where I feel like I'm going to die and I'm panicking and I can't breathe. I feel ready and I feel capable and I'm so excited. I know this sounds weird, but I'm so excited to meet with another man, my size, my age, my skill level, and just try and rip each other's heads off. Because I've never been in a fight. I've never been in a physical altercation. And my whole life, I've always wanted to know how I would go. And I'm about to find out. I'm about to find out within a safety, organized situation with a ref. So no one's going to die. No one's going to, whatever, might break an arm, might get choked out. But that's a really extreme example. What's more than likely is one of us will get tired and the other person will tap out. Right? That's what's going to happen. But the intensity of there's a weird thing where I want to test out my physical capability. I want to test it. How far can I go? It's like when you get a car and you want to go on the highway and just push the accelerator all the way to the full. Let's see what this thing's got. I feel like I've never opened it up like that. I've never tapped into that gladiator, that Roman soldier that wants to kill someone. Your thoughts aren't you, man, unless you act on them. So I'm so excited, nervous, because I don't know what's going to happen. That's what I've learned, what fear is. It's just not knowing. Years ago when I went to church, it said fear, false evidence appearing real. Fear is just not understanding what's in the future. And then you create the worst. Man, reduce it. Fear, and I've said this so many times, fear is a disease. It'll ruin you. The biggest thing I've learned in my jiu-jitsu training is learning how to remain calm in very panicky situations. I was watching two people fight or roll, train, both brown belts, which is the second from black. Well, second. Hi. Good. Very good. I roll both of them, get my butt absolutely smacked. One of them's very aggressive and offensive and very dominating in his approach. And the other one's very calm and quite measurably reactive and it's good. But what was interesting is the one that's always very dominating and aggressive in his approach to rolling with you. I actually tapped him out and that made me feel really good. But I saw him just lose aggression a little bit and lose intensity. And it was kind of like seeing the invincible monster have a weak spot. And instantly a relief comes over you to go, I can actually get you. You're not invincible like I thought. There is a small chance that I can beat that monster because there's a little opening right there, a weak spot, a blind spot. And that's where I can target. And against the guy who was calm, I can't see that blind spot ever because he's consistently calm. He's never more aggressive than not. He's never more defensive than not. He's just always consistent, which he's calm, composed, confident, capable. And I was watching them and I was like, we want to be aggressive sometimes when we're met with challenge, but I don't think that works. I think calm, measured, confident, calculated, that always works. I feel like that works the best all the time. So whenever you're faced with a challenge, a fight metaphorically, calm, measured, calculated, confident approach. That is the secret to fighting, physically, metaphorically, whatever. So I really want to let you know how I go. I'll do another episode after the competition and I will hopefully get some vision as well. And yeah, stay tuned for the next one where I'll give you the result of, I'm just checked today. I've got 7 matches over an hour and a half, 7 fights. Woo! Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. Really appreciate you. Have a fantastic day.